From WICU 12 and Lilly Broadcasting, this is a special election 2012 broadcast. The Erie Reader 2012 Downtown Debate Series from the Jefferson Educational Society. Tonight, the race for the 3rd District seat in the Pennsylvania House of Representatives.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Erie Reader 2012 Downtown Debate Series. My name is Adam Welsh, and I'm one of the founders and editors-in-chief of the Erie Reader. Tonight we feature Democrat Ryan Bizzarro and Republican Jason Owen as they vie to represent the 3rd District in the Pennsylvania House of Representatives, the seat vacated by Democrat John Horniman. We're all here gathered in common purpose, all of us intent on moving our city forward safely and responsibly into the 21st century. At the Reader, we take our role in this dialogue very seriously. It's the reason we decided to put this event together. The same reason we're all here to listen to Bizzarro and Owen, Anderson and Wiley. They are our friends and our neighbors, but most importantly, tonight, they are our candidates. And they're here to tell us about how they share that same goal, how they plan to keep moving us safely and responsibly forward. We're hosting these debates because this matters to our city, our area, and our region. That you have the chance to hear those who want to represent you before you cast your ballot. We're hosting these debates because this city and its future matters to all of us, regardless of whether we're liberal or conservative, left or right, and here we all are. So without further ado, allow me to introduce tonight's moderator, Lilly Broadcasting's John Last.
Thank you, Adam. Good evening. I'm John Last from WICU 12 News, and it's great to be here at the Jefferson Educational Society. Now, this is the Erie Reader 2012 Downtown Debate for the 3rd District of the Pennsylvania House, the seat vacated by the retiring Representative John Horniman. Now, before we get started, I'd like to thank the people who helped bring us the debate tonight: Epic Web Studios, the Jefferson Educational Society, Lilly Broadcasting, and Velocity Network. Thanks again for all your assistance. Now I'd like to introduce our panel, the people that will be asking the questions tonight. On the far left of the table, Erie Reader Managing Editor Ben Spagan. In the middle, WICU 12 News anchor Kevin McDowell. And at the right of the table, Erie Reader Contributing Editor Corey Valacourt. Now it's my pleasure to introduce the candidates. First, Democrat Ryan Bizzarro, and Republican Jason Owen. Now let me explain how things will work tonight. Each panelist will have 30 seconds to ask a question. And the first candidate has 90 seconds to answer. Then the other candidate will get 90 seconds to respond. And then we move on to another question. Now, each candidate will get 3 minutes for an opening statement and also 3 minutes for a closing statement. Now, we do have a timer sitting in the front row here, and she will hold up a yellow card when there's 30 seconds left, and then she will hold up a red card when it's time to stop and close for that particular answer. Now, the candidate's order has been determined by a random draw, so the opening statement will be made tonight by Mr. Bizzarro.
Well, first and foremost, I want to thank the Erie Reader, Epic Web Studio, the Jefferson Educational Society, Velocity Network, and of course, the Jefferson Educational Society for hosting this here tonight. This is great. I'm very excited to be a part of this. It's a chance for the community to really come together and for us to talk about the issues that we're going to be dealing with and that are concerning you. My name is Ryan Bizzarro. I'm a candidate for the 3rd District. The district consists of Mill Creek, McCain, Waterford, Franklin, and Fairview, a portion of Fairview Township. I was born here. I was raised here. I was educated here. I've lived here my entire life. I am dedicated to this community. With this race, we're going on the course right now, and in this race, we can continue to let Harrisburg marginalize Erie County, or we can grab the reins and take control and move forward. I know what option I'm looking to do. We need to move forward in this community. We can no longer continue to be irrelevant. My professional experience started at the Crime Victim Center in the Erie County District Attorney's Office, where I was a victim witness advocate and coordinator. I helped victims get through the process with ease, and I helped strengthen the bond between the District Attorney's Office and the Victim Witness Department. I then went to the City of Erie School District, where I worked with children. There, I helped reduce acts of delinquency and crime, helped reduce crime and delinquency by over 25%. And now at the Erie County Convention Center Authority, I work with the sales and business development team to bring new state and national organizations into Erie, which directly has a direct effect on our local economy here. But there's one theme about my professional experience, and that is I'm giving back for the greater good. I am dedicated to public service, and I'm ready for this job. As your state representative, I'm going to fight for you, and I'm going to fight for what's right in our community so it is represented out in Harrisburg. And I'm going to fight to bring prosperity to Pennsylvania. That's important. We're going to do that by focusing on business development and work retention. We're going to actually ensure also that education and infrastructure are properly funded. Those two elements are crucial. No business wants to invest in a state that has crumbling infrastructure or in a state that has an unskilled and uneducated workforce. Excuse me, getting a little tongue-tied there. But we need to focus on where our priorities are. And right now, with all the cuts to education, over $1 billion in cuts to K-12 education and the lack of investment in basic infrastructure projects, it's a problem. It's a problem. And I have a plan to get Pennsylvania back to where it needs to go to build prosperity to lead us into the 21st century.
Thank you, Mr. Bizzarro. Now the opening statement by Mr. Owen.
Thank you, John, and thank you to the Reader and the Jefferson Society for hosting this tonight. It's a great turnout, and I'm really honored and privileged to be here. And thank you to the audience for tuning into this. I'm running for my name is Jason Owen. I'm running for state representative in the 3rd Legislative District because we need a strong, independent leader who will fight for Erie County down in Harrisburg. Because of this, and because this is such a critically important race, I have gone out and knocked and called on 10,000 doors, 10,000 different households. I have talked to the voters there so that I am educated on what the random and honest and unassuming constituent wants in their legislator and wants from their legislature. On Election Day, we're going to lose 34 years of experience between Jane Earl, John Horniman, and John Evans. 34 years of experience in the legislature is out the door on Election Day. We need someone who will be ready on day one to work hard for this community and start fighting for Erie County and make sure that Erie County gets its just due from Harrisburg. I'm also running because there's a lack of leadership in Harrisburg. When I made my announcement on February 29th at Bolt Machinery, we started talking about that lack of leadership then. I understand who's in control in Harrisburg, but in Erie County, we've had some significant issues. Redistricting, the 814 area code, just to name a few, as well as the cuts to the flagship Niagara League. These are all 3 issues that I am concerned about. And these are all 3 issues where I have walked the walk and talked the talk on this. These are important issues that not even as an elected representative I was working on. I was the pro bono legal counsel for the SaveThe814.com petition. Harrisburg got it wrong. The PUC got it wrong. I worked with 14,000 people who made their voices heard so that we could make sure that Harrisburg knew what they were doing was wrong, and they reversed that decision. And it was just a simple mechanism to fix it, which allowed us to keep our area code and allowed us to not have to spend unimaginable amounts of money on fixing, on solving a problem that didn't exist. I rolled up my sleeves and got to work on the Board of Trustees for the flagship Niagara League. When the state said no, we can't afford to fund the Niagara as it's known and as it sails today, and they wanted to tie it to the dock, I joined the Board of Trustees to help out. While I was on the board, I served as the board president and took a leadership role. We were able to have a wildly successful tall ships area that we brought to this community which I'm still proud of, and I can't wait to team up with Perry 200 next year to pull off Tall Ships 2013, which is going to be a gem that we get to put on display for the entire Commonwealth for our community. And when it comes to redistricting, that's an issue. That's a significant issue. I wasn't happy with the way they carved up Erie County. I sent a letter to Majority Leader Mike Turzai, and I told him, come up here, let me show you the geographical boundaries. Let me help you understand what you're doing to this community. These are things that I started on day one. I have no problem saying no to power and telling them when they're wrong and telling them how they fix it. I worked in Harrisburg before. I know how Harrisburg's broken, and I know how we begin to fix it.
Thank you, Mr. Owen. The first question will be presented by Ben Spagan, and it will be presented to Mr. Bizzarro.
Mr. Bizzarro, a rather standard question would be to ask, what direction do you see Erie headed in the next 1, 5, and 10 years? And if elected, what will you do to drive it there? With Destination Erie, a regional vision now underway, what type of identity do you see Erie currently having, and in what direction do you think this plan needs to take Erie?
Well, it's an excellent question. When I go to Harrisburg on day one, I want to work. To get anything done in Harrisburg, there's two things that you have to understand that has to happen. It's compromise and consensus. So on day one, I want to go there and develop an immediate and short-term strategy that focuses on putting funds back into education and infrastructure. From there, we'll be able to create tens of thousands of jobs for our area, or tens of thousands of jobs for the state, bring new businesses into Pennsylvania and in our community. So I'd like to do that as soon as possible, getting down there. Knowing that I'm a freshman, it's going to take some time, but I've built some pretty good relationships with our current reps down there. And I think that our voice will be able to be effectively heard, and we'll be able to do that. I think Erie is an untapped potential. We are sitting in one of the best geographic locations. We are untapped for all intensive purposes. We never really had that boom that Buffalo had. We've never had that boom that Cleveland's had. And we certainly haven't had that boom that Pittsburgh's have. I want to see Erie County have that boom. We're set up for it. We deserve it. And it's going to happen. It's going to happen eventually. And I want to be a part of that process.
Thank you, Mr. Bizzarro. Your 90-second response, Mr. Owen.
The direction of Erie in the next 1, 5, and 10 years. It takes vision, it takes leadership, it takes a proven track record that's battle-tested to fight hard for us down there. When I worked for Governor Ridge and Governor Schweiker after I graduated from Allegheny College, I got to work in the Department of Education and Legislative Affairs. I got to work in the governor's office, and I represented both Tom Ridge and Mark Schweiker throughout the Commonwealth to everyone. And I've already had some experience doing this. On day one, I will be ready. And I know that as a freshman legislator, we don't have a lot of clout and power, but I fully expect to be in the majority when I go down there, and I fully expect to exercise that voice. And I will lead by example. I will be willing to make the tough decisions when it comes to perks, when it comes to reimbursements, when it comes to saying no to the culture in Harrisburg that has failed us for so long. I will lead by example. That's what I can do. I don't make a lot of promises on this campaign, but I promise that I will work hard and I will do my best. And that's all I can offer. And I look forward to being a part of this vision and the destination that Erie will go to as it grows into a very powerful player in the Commonwealth in the years to come.
Thank you, Mr. Owen. The next question will be presented by Kevin McDowell, and it will go to Mr. Owen.
Let's keep this theme going about Harrisburg. Once you get down there, on your website, one of your main points is government reform. So the first part of my question is the legislature too big? Would you like to see it smaller? How would you do it? And where would you start cutting in state government?
Thank you, Kevin. The issue with government reform is huge. And I don't think the issue hinges on the legislature being too big. The issue hinges on the legislature being too costly. What we have right now is 203 members in the House of Representatives. The last thing I want to do is shrink that number down necessarily just for the sake of shrinking it. I think we need to focus first on shrinking the cost of the legislature. I think we need to be more responsible. And I think that when we run Harrisburg more and the Commonwealth more like a business with competition and with making sure that we're strategically investing, we're able to save money there. If we continue, if that doesn't solve the problem, then I'm very much open to shrinking the size of the legislature. But the focus here needs to be on shrinking the cost of the legislature. It costs far too much. It's one of the third highest costly in the country. And I don't think we get that bang for our buck out of the legislature in Harrisburg. In terms of government reform, I think that we need to get rid of the per diem system. It's just a blank check for legislators when they go to check in that they get $100 and some dollars to cover that. We need to run Harrisburg like a business. We need to run the Commonwealth like a business. I think that by providing receipts and taking actual reimbursements for actual expenses, that's the way we go about reducing the cost for the taxpayers.
Your 90-second response, Mr. Bizzarro.
I want to go back to a previous statement, and I would like to say that, Jason, I know Governor Ridge, and I know Governor Ridge very well, and you were an intern, not a representative for him. The people of the 3rd District deserve better than the half-truth, so I just wanted to put that out there. Government, as far as government reform, government is too big. State government is too big, absolutely. We do have 203 representatives. We could shrink the legislature, absolutely. 2 per county would be fine. And it is too costly. My opponent is right, it does cost a lot, especially with mileage reimbursements and the per diems. Absolutely it costs a lot, so I will do whatever it takes to get our fiscal house in order.
Thank you, Mr. Bizzarro. The next question will be asked by Corey Valancourt, and it will be presented to Mr. Bizzarro.
Ryan, the man you seek to replace, John Horniman, has been a tireless advocate in Harrisburg for the Kansas Cancer Research Foundation. He's helped shepherd literally hundreds of thousands of dollars to the foundation. Will you follow his example, and if so, how?
The Kansas Cancer Foundation is actually, it goes to a cause that's near and dear to my heart. Being a cancer survivor, I could tell you that my heart is in this project. John actually got 2 $500,000 grants for the Kansas Research Project. He did that in his term in his tenure as state representative, and I will continue to try to find the funds to give to this foundation. I mean, I understand that there's a problem right now because of a lot of the research is done in Texas, and that's what seems to be the problem, why they're having trouble getting funds from Pennsylvania. But I think that with me having a personal story to it and the relationships that I'm going to build down there, I think we'll be able to do something for them. I am certainly committed to the cause, and I will do everything I can to ensure that we do get some money down there.
90 seconds to respond, Mr. Owen.
I'm going to start the first part of this response rebutting my opponent's previous comment. Yes, I was an intern for Governor Tom Ridge. And then after I graduated from Allegheny College, I went to work for him full-time as a professional in the Department of Education in the Legislative Affairs Office. Then I worked for him full-time directly as an advance representative. And then I stayed on with Governor Schweiker, where I stayed on at the Q Creek Mine Rescue and worked hand in hand with him for 80 hours. That was a 40, 50, 60-hour-a-week job. It was no internship, but we'll worry about the facts later. As far as the Kansas Cancer Research Foundation goes, this is an organization that's near and dear to my heart right now. My stepfather figure is battling cancer, and if we can find an invasive way to eradicate this horrible condition, I will be the first one to fight hard for this. And that's why we need a strong, independent leader who will not kowtow to the Harrisburg leaders, who will not kowtow to misinformation and half-truths, someone who will continue to fight for Erie County and make sure that that funding mechanism comes back and will be there for Mark Neidig and all of the great folks that work at the Kansas Cancer Research Foundation, and will also help those people that struggle every day by having to go to West 12th Street and go through those horrible chemotherapy regimens that are out there.
The next question will be asked by Ben Spagan, and it will be presented to Mr. Owen.
Mr. Owen, both President Barack Obama and Republican candidate Mitt Romney have focused discussions on making America less dependent on foreign energy, which suggests an opening of the door for hydraulic fracturing, or fracking, in our area. Specifically, what is your stance on fracking?
Specifically, my stance on fracking is that it absolutely has to be safe. When I worked with Governor Ridge, he would talk about an old Indian adage, and it went something like this. We did not inherit this land from our ancestors. It is on loan from our children. I couldn't agree with that more. We need to make sure that we are being responsible with our resources. We need to make sure that we are protecting the environment for our children, our grandchildren, and future generations. We absolutely have to make sure that what we do is responsible. However, this is a second bite at the apple when it comes to natural resources and the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. This is a huge opportunity for us. The nation is watching us. Other countries are watching us. We have to handle this perfectly, or with as much excellence as we can, so that we find the right balance to make sure that we're providing for future generations, we're protecting the environment for future generations, and we're making sure that through employment taxes and through income taxes, that the Pennsylvania economy will rebound and grow strong. And so this opportunity is vital on so many different levels. And so that I clearly think that fracking needs to be safe and responsible for future generations.
Your response, Mr. Bizzarro.
Look, we're sitting on the second largest natural gas reserve in the entire world. I mean, we have a gold mine under our feet, and we would be absolutely irresponsible if we did not start really tapping into that and extracting that gas there. But we do need to do it in a responsible manner. And we do need to give the power back to local municipalities in order to make that decision. Right now, the state the local government has some degree of control over what's going on with fracking, but the state could come in and overrule that. We've got to leave local municipalities total control with this, because nobody knows the local lands quite like the local people do. With Erie County, we look at our situation, it's different. We're sitting on one of our greatest assets, the lake. I mean, tourism's a huge industry here, and we need to be careful about how we drill. But that saying, I absolutely support drilling in this state, and I absolutely support fracking.
The next question will be presented by Kevin McDowell, and it will go to Mr. Bizzarro.
Thank you, John Last. We have desks next to each other at work. Okay, Mr. Bizzarro, healthcare, Obamacare. Number one, do you support it in its entirety? Number two, a lot of the expense down the road is going to fall to the states. They're going to have the option of opting out, as far as I read the healthcare legislation. Would you support Obamacare but opt out of it so it's not that expensive for Pennsylvania? Would you support it entirely, or do you just want to chuck it and try something else?
I mean, in theory, I understand what Obama was trying to do with the Affordable Care Act. I think his heart was in the right place. Unfortunately, anything that's that long is very cumbersome to understand. As far as it goes in this state, look, the Supreme Court ruled on that. I mean, it's essentially the law of the land now. It is okay. It is completely legal. So no, the question is, we need to really decide whether we're going to set up insurance exchanges in this market here in Pennsylvania, if the state wants to do that, or if we're going to let the federal government come in and take reign over it and enforce a program here. It's up to whatever this governor wants to do. Right now, there's talks about him not wanting to do anything, not wanting to set it up in the state, and letting the federal government come here and run with it. I would prefer for the state to set up the insurance exchanges in order to make the market a little bit more competitive. But I won't find out until I'm down in Harrisburg and until I'm working on that problem.
Your response, Mr. Owen.
Thank you. I disagree with it in its entirety. I don't think that we should be mandating folks to buy insurance. I'm as much a libertarian as I am a Republican. The less government we have, the better. I've stated that, and I'm on record on that. In fact, in even our last debate. As far as one man's power in Harrisburg, I appreciate my opponent's respect of Governor Corbett and what he can do with the Department of Public Welfare, but I think we need an independent leader who's going to fight for Erie County and do what's best and not just leave it to one man in Harrisburg to make a decision on this issue. I think that we need to focus on working with DPW, the Secretary and the Governor's office to make sure they understand why we have our concerns about it and what the concerns of the residents of Erie County are. And that's one of the things that I will focus on. Now, as far as opting out of it, one thing that I have a problem with necessarily is having the federal government run it. I think that if we're going to be involved in something like that, I think that we need to take a careful and hard look at having state control. That obviously is critical. In Pennsylvania, we enjoy local control in our school districts and various regulations throughout the Commonwealth. And we need to focus on whether or not in Pennsylvania it's best for the Commonwealth to have a little more local control over this and to be running this rather than just leaving it up to the federal government, which in some aspects has had and caused some problems with this from the get-go. Thank you.
Our next question comes to our panel from social media. It will be asked by Corey Valancourt, and it will be presented to Mr. Owen.
Jason, right-to-work states have been proven to be more attractive to businesses looking to relocate. What is your position on making Pennsylvania a right-to-work state? And if you're opposed, what other economic incentive programs would you support that would help attract that investment to our region?
What a great thing. Social media providing these questions to us. Let me be clear. As far as I am concerned as your legislator, everything is on the table. I look at Texas, I look at North Carolina, I look at all these other states as competitors. And when we made our announcement at Bolt Machinery on Leap Day, February 29th, we started talking about making Pennsylvania more competitive back then. We follow their example. They make their customers more competitive. And that's exactly what we need to do with the legislature and with the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. By making it more competitive, it's more attractive to folks to come here to grow their businesses, invest their money, and provide more family-sustaining jobs. And some of those other states have right-to-work laws, and so we absolutely need to consider that. Is it a perfect end-all solution? Maybe, maybe not. But as far as I'm concerned as your representative, I will start the conversation and continue the conversation as I have over these last 10,000 doors and calls that I've made on this campaign to find out what your concerns are so that we can make Pennsylvania more competitive so that more folks will come here, because there are nations and there are other states out there that are competing for these same dollars and same resources. And I applaud Governor Corbett and the legislature for the package they put together that brought Shell into Beaver County. The opportunity there for the spin-off jobs was visionary and was concerned about the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, and we need to be as competitive as possible.
Your response, Mr. Owen, or Mr. Bizzarro.
It's okay. Well, to start and end the question, I would oppose it. I would oppose changing the state to a right-to-work state. What we can do, however, is we can give tax credits for businesses who hire state workers, and we can continue to give them incentives to stay in Pennsylvania. A perfect example is I'm on the Erie County Industrial Development Authority and we recently just approved a bond issue for the TIF project. We saved a major corporation from moving out of Pennsylvania, from moving out of Erie County. We were able to save 1,000 jobs and create additional 87. This is good news. This is good news for Pennsylvania, it's good for Erie County, and it's good for our tax base. So if we can continue to maybe do some sort of public-private partnerships with other areas or other businesses in the state to entice them to come here, I think it's well worth our while. We don't need to change this to a right-to-work state just to make us more competitive. There are alternative ways in doing that without hurting labor.
The next question also comes to our panel from social media. It will be asked by Ben Spagan, and it will be presented to Mr. Bizzarro.
Mr. Bizzarro, do you plan to restore the nearly $1 billion Governor Corbett has cut from the public education system? And if so, how would you restore it?
Education is one of my top priorities. Working in the City of Erie School District, I've seen the struggles that these students and teachers have in the classroom. Classes were too crowded, students were out of control, and they didn't have the ways and means of dealing with them. I understand that the budget needed cuts, but responsible cuts needed to be made. Cutting it out of education was completely unacceptable. What we should be doing is investing in education and empowering our students and getting them ready to be competitive on the global scale. And for jobs of the 21st century, getting education back and how we're going to do that, the funding, we need to look at alternative ways of generating revenue that aren't on the backs of small business owners and working class families and entrepreneurs. We need to take a look at some of the big industry that's coming in here and perhaps introducing or proposing some sort of fee on them for any of the extraction of our natural resources. And in case in point for the Marcellus Shale, I would be in favor of putting a responsible fee on that industry that half the money went to the general fund and half went to a cleanup, but we could use that money that was placed in the general fund and use it toward education to fill that void.
Your response, Mr. Owen.
I don't know how we begin a conversation or end a conversation talking about competitiveness and making Pennsylvania more competitive and talking about taxing big industries. The big industries that are here in Pennsylvania do not want to stay in Pennsylvania with the tax system that we already have. Look at GE. Their headquarters is moving, their overflow capacity is moving. But this point's around education. And in terms of the $1 billion, that was supposed to be an investment in education. There was a clear mandate from the federal government that this was a one-time only investment in education. It was shovel-ready projects. I think that we need to continue to increase the basic education subsidy. We need to fight for increased basic education funding. But the problem with the question is that it presumes that this $1 billion was already from state funds that were coming in, and that's not the case. That was a one-time infusion. I disagreed with Governor Corbett when he proposed his cuts to education, and I was glad to see that the legislature restored the funding to education in this budget that they passed on time, constitutionally mandated, which is something that we've had problems with in the past, specifically in this district when they closed down the peninsula. So when it comes to basic education funding, you can count on me to fight for every dollar for Erie County that we possibly can get.
The next question is from Kevin McDowell, and it will be presented to Mr. Owen.
Thank you, John. Mr. Owen, I'm glad you mentioned GE, because one of your priorities is business and economic development. I guess, how would you spur economic development? I don't know if you believe in the philosophy of the best thing for government to do is just get out of the way. But number two is we have a plant going up in Texas, and a little reverb in the building. We have a plant going up in Texas. GE is building it that would do the same thing Lawrence Park would do. Won't be ready for a while, maybe a few years down the road that everything will really be kicked in and start going. But it sounds to me, looks to a lot of people like we may have some alarm bells going off. What are you going to do the minute you get into Harrisburg to try to do something about that, and what would you do?
Well, Kevin, maybe that's the reverberation in the room that we hear, is the alarm bells. We need to start that conversation. I've started my conversation with my constituents by knocking on these 10,000 doors that I'm committed to making sure that I'm representative of the district. We need to start those conversations with GE and with our other major employers. There's a top 10 list. It's published annually by the Economic Development Corporation. We need to make sure that we know exactly what their issues are, what their concerns are. Now, when it comes to how we're going to do this, I can give you a couple ideas that are in my economic plan. We need to lower the corporate net income tax rate. We need to phase out the corporate or the capital stock and franchise tax. We need to continue to make Pennsylvania more business friendly. It's competition. Whether you like football or baseball or basketball, it's the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania versus the state of Ohio versus the state of New York versus the state of Texas. These are the resources. These are the home runs. These are the grand slams. These are the knockout punches, if you will. We absolutely need to be competing with these other states to keep them here. And these other states have lower taxes. They have other incentives to keep folks here. So those are some of the things that I would start to work on. And as far as regulations go, we need to decrease the regulations in this Commonwealth that are crushing these businesses. The capital stock and franchise tax is a double tax on business. They know it, we know it. Closing the Delaware loophole. These are all things that we need to do to make us more competitive.
Your response, Mr. Bizzarro.
Well, I think it is alarming that they sent signals when they started sending people to Chicago. A red flag should have went up there. I think we should have done something sooner. We should have been having conversations way before this happened. We do need to keep GE here, at least to some degree. They say they're committed to the Erie community. I don't know. I think in 5 years we're going to see a whole different Erie if they don't stay. But what to do? I mean, it's not just what we can do in the House, but it's cooperation and collaboration of all government, local, state, and federal. We need to get all our leaders together and come to a common solution that we can present to GE that they like to entice them to stay here. It's working together, it's building these relationships, and it is to a degree making our state more competitive. And we want to revamp the tax code, we better revamp it from the whole thing, because it's not good for business and it's not good for private people as well. Our tax code is very complex. So yeah, I mean, the long and short answer to this is we better get a move on this now. We better start working with every elected official in this community and start seeing what we can do to entice them to stay in Erie, period.
Well, unfortunately, our debate for the 3rd District House seat is coming to a close. It's time for closing statements, and each candidate will have 3 minutes to make their closing statement, and we will start with Mr. Bizzarro.
Well, again, I just want to thank the Erie Reader, Lilly Broadcast, the Jefferson Educational Society, Epic Web Studio, and Velocity Network for hosting this event tonight. I want to thank all those who tuned in to watch this evening and all those in attendance. You heard a lot from both candidates tonight. You heard a lot from both of us. And at the end of the night, you have to make a decision. Who is going to be the candidate that's going to fight for you? Who's going to fight for your best interests? Ryan Bizzarro is going to fight for your best interests. Ryan Bizzarro is going to fight for you. I am that candidate. You see there's 2 candidates up here. One is a public servant and who has had a life of public service and who's come from a family of small business owners. So he knows how to balance public and private industry. And you see another gentleman who is an aspiring career politician with distinct differences between the 2 of us. I am the one that's going to fight for you. I am going to fight for our community, and I am going to fight to represent our best interests out in Harrisburg. We need to also start really thinking about who we're sending down to Harrisburg because it matters. The human element of politics, out of politics, is gone. We start putting other needs over human needs, and that's a problem. We're paralyzed by partisan politics, and we can't afford much more. If we don't start working together, if we don't start compromising and coming to a consensus, we're in big trouble. Nothing is getting done. We're at a standstill. We need to start working together. I ask you tonight to stand with me. We're in this together. Republicans, Democrats, Independents, it doesn't matter who you are. We're in this together, and together we can and we will make a difference. I ask for you tonight to stand with me, be the difference. I respectfully ask for every one of your votes on November 6th. Thanks for having me again. God bless.
Your closing statement, Mr. Owen.
Thank you. I find it offensive to call someone an aspiring career politician, someone who's ran for the same job twice, because I have an expertise in state government. I talked in 2008 about running to make a difference and about investing in our future by investing in our youth and about the failed policies and how Harrisburg is broken and how we can begin to fix it. I ran then because we were closing down Presque Isle in the middle of tourist season in the summer. I ran for the study commission because my community needed a volunteer. There's only been one full-time job I've ever run for, and I continue to do that. And that's why I've knocked on 10,000 doors to talk and called and knocked on 10,000 doors to talk to so many folks so I know exactly what is on their mind, so that I can be the strong, independent leader that is fighting for Erie County that we desperately need in Harrisburg. This lack of leadership is sickening. I fight every day for my clients. I have a proven track record in court, literally helping people who have lost their health or lost their jobs, or as a result of one or the other, both. I've got a proven record. You can check the dockets. We help people get back on their feet when times are tough. And that's exactly what we need in Harrisburg right now. Someone who is going to help the Commonwealth get back on its feet when times are tough. I worked for Governor Ridge and Governor Schweiker. I've got state government experience. I'm currently in the private sector. I'm the only candidate in this race who has private sector experience on their professional resume. As a bankruptcy attorney at Yoakum, Skiba & Nash, I work every day in the private sector. That's how you prove your results, is by staying there for multiple years. That's how you prove that you're going to be the strong, independent leader fighting for Erie County throughout all of the Commonwealth. The lack of leadership is pervasive. 34 years of experience is out the door. That's clout, that's understanding the process, that's out the door. We can do better. I don't make promises on this campaign. Politicians make promises. The only 2 promises that I've made on this campaign are that I will work hard and I will do my best. I will strive for excellence. I will do what I possibly can to help my community, because every day I've seen so many people struggling, and we need folks that are going to fight for this community. I encourage you to check out our websites. You can visit mine at votejasonowen.com. It's available 24/7 as a campaign headquarters. Find out more about what I stand for. I've told you a lot about it tonight, but there's a lot more information on there. from the Save the 814 area code to working in Q Creek with Governor Schweiker to working every day to helping families that need it the most. I will put that experience to fight for liberty, to fight for the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, and most importantly, to fight for the constituents of Erie County in the 3rd Legislative District. I thank you for your time. I thank you for the sponsors who put this together, and have a good night.
Thank you, gentlemen. Once again, it's been my pleasure to be the moderator for this debate, and once again, I'd like to thank everyone that made tonight possible. Sponsors Epic Web Studios, the Jefferson Educational Society, Lilly Broadcasting, and the Velocity Network. I'd like to thank our panelists tonight, Ben Spagan, Kevin McDowell, and Corey Valancourt, and we'd like to thank the Erie Reader for being the main sponsor for this event tonight. And let's thank our candidates once again, Ryan Bizzarro and Jason Owen. I'd like to thank everyone for coming tonight and thank everyone who has been watching. Also, don't forget, Election Day is Tuesday, November the 6th. Also, there is a debate between the Senate candidates, Janet Anderson and Democrat Sean Wiley. So, good night for the Erie Reader 2012 Downtown Debate Series, and good night from the Jefferson Educational Society.
From WICU 12 and Lilly Broadcasting, this has been a Special Decision 2012 broadcast, the Erie Reader 2012 Downtown Debate Series. Special thanks to additional sponsors, the Jefferson Educational Society, Epic Web Studios, and Velocity Network. Next Wednesday, we'll bring you the debate and the race for the 49th District State Senate race between Republican Janet Anderson and Democrat Sean Wiley. Thank you for joining us, and remember to go to the polls and vote on November 6th.